on? Welcome to a brand new episode of United in Strength. Mike here, and before I continue, I just want to give you a brief reminder. If you like this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, and that way you will know when I have more videos coming. As you can see lately, I've been on a bit of a roll. I want to continue that. If you've been following me for the last year or so, then you already know that I'm a big believer in strengthening and warming up your lower back before performing any compound lift. It's a great way of preventing an injury because you had a tight back. It's why I do back extensions, and I wrote an article about that back in May. I'll leave that in the link below. But there are other exercises you can perform too, especially for those of you who choose to work out at home and might not have easy access to, say, a back extension station. But it also has other benefits as well. We're talking about the glute bridge. The glute bridge is another posterior chain exercise, but the main focus is the gluteus maximus, the medius, and the minimus, all three heads of that area. And they make up the support system for your hips in terms of movement and especially in flexibility. And let's talk about some of the amazing benefits of the glute bridge if you perform it every single day. No more back pain. Are you someone whose job requires sitting for most of the day, if not at all? That's a common cause for back pain in a lot of people, believe it or not, because when you're sitting down for extended periods of time, you're weakening your glutes. And doing so causes the muscles to pull in the lower back because they are weakened. In fact, when I twisted my own lower back in 2011 while doing labor, the glute bridge was one of the few exercises that my physical therapist prescribed for me to do at home because it strengthened the entire core, but specifically the glutes and the lower back, because my lower back was in so much pain that it shot down to my right foot. It was so bad. A stronger core. Like I discussed in my article on back extensions, most lifters, regardless of the goals, tend to just train the muscles they see and not understanding the importance of the muscles in the rear. This could absolutely lead to muscle imbalances, potentially leading to an injury. And you have to remember, your core is not just your abs, something else I mentioned in that back extension article, and that training your lower back will improve your posture as well as your overall body strength and get rid of those imbalances. And by the way, if you do keep tight during the glute bridge itself, you will in fact train your abs. So you have nothing to worry about. Everything will be covered. Improvement in squat and deadlift performance. I recently ran a poll on my Instagram a few days ago, and I asked people who perform glute bridges and whether or not they felt it improved their squat and deadlift performance, and a good chunk of them said that they felt it did. Maybe one or two people decided that it didn't help them. And it's easy to see why those people who voted yes would say so, because much like with the back extensions, not only do squat and deadlifts rely on warmed up and strengthened posterior chains for maximum performance, but the glute bridge, much like the squat and deadlift, is essentially another hip hinge variation, and they all go hand in hand. Strong glutes makes for strong hips and making for a far more powerful lift. It's all about what Mark Rippetoe calls hip drive. Now, before we go over the proper execution of the glute bridge, one thing I recommend everybody do is a foam roll, which I already did for the sake of time for this instructional video. And make sure they do a hip flexor stretch. As I mentioned earlier, when you sit down, you tighten your glutes, but guess what? Your hip flexors are flexed, and that can lead to tightness, which can lead to a lot of pain and might cause difficulty in doing this movement, or at least pain in doing this movement. So I'm going to start off here by doing 3 sets of hip flexor stretches, 10 seconds per side. My opposing leg out to stretch out the other leg. I'm going to hold as such for 10 seconds. It's okay to rock a little bit back and forth if you feel like you need to. And then I'm going to move this leg back. And this is the leg I'm going to stretch out now. So in order to get that done, the opposing leg is going to be bent like such. And the same thing. I have my feet like that. And I'm going to stretch it for 10 seconds. What I'm doing is actually part of the Defranco Agile 8. He has other stuff in there too, and I could find a link for that, I will. Again, you can move a little bit back and forth if you need to. And I'm going to do that for 2 more sets. All right, so now that my little hip flexor stretch is done, I can do this without feeling much pain. So the next thing I'm going to do is, you could do this on the floor, or in my case, a yoga mat. I'm going to lay on the floor on my back, nice and flat. My knees will be bent about 45 degrees, my feet on the ground, arms in front of me. This is the starting position. And now, what you will do is take a nice deep breath, and you will inhale, and you will exhale, and when you exhale, you bring your hips up, like such. A nice and smooth and controlled manner. And when you bring them up, once they are midline with your legs, your femurs, you will hold for a few seconds. Bring it back down. And that's 1 rep. And do that for up to 12 repetitions if you can. And then do that for 2 more sets. I'll do this 1 or 2 more times. Nice and controlled. My hips are midline. Do not drive with your feet. This is all about strengthening the glutes, so your hips have to do the work. 1 more. And that is how you perform a glute bridge. Now, before we end this video, let's go over a few recommendations that I might have for you. First off is perform these every day if you want this to work. If you sit all day, it's imperative that you keep your lower back in check. You have to keep it strong to avoid pain. Performing this move every day will ensure that your glutes are as strong as your hamstrings, maybe even stronger at one point, and that won't be such a bad thing, don't worry, because the hamstrings also play a part in your lower back health. Once you master the basic bridge, there are other variations you should attempt, including placing your feet on either a medicine ball if you have access to it, or maybe a little shelf or a little platform you could put your feet on. Anything to make the move a little bit more challenging, which will make your glutes stronger and might even improve the flexibility in your back. Once you get to that point, you could try something else like, say, the wrestler's bridge. Definitely test your flexibility. Some lifters will rely on the wrestler's bridge to help them with their bench press arch because of the flexibility aspect. Something I first heard about through Lee Haywood back in the early 2010s, maybe 2009 actually. You could also continue to perform the basic move which I just showed you, and you could add weight via a kettlebell, a dumbbell, or especially a barbell. Some gyms, including my own, have or might have a glute bridge machine, and if your gym is one of them, you might want to give it a test drive and see how you feel with it. Accessory work. I personally know some powerlifters who choose to incorporate this move into their routines as an accessory movement. And that's totally fine. A lot of people do that. Same thing with the back extensions. But because of where I stand in my own little bias, my preference, if I were doing glute bridges in the gym, would probably be to make the glute bridge the very first exercise I do before anything else, because it'll ensure that my posterior chain and my back and my glutes themselves are nice and fresh while performing the movement, and it'll warm the area up and loosening it up there for before any kind of a major lift, including a squat and a deadlift, and therefore you'd be less likely to get hurt because your back was tight. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed this free tutorial on how to perform glute bridges as well as the benefits. If you like this, let me know by hitting that like button and subscribing, and I'll give you more of these. Follow me on social media. I'm also available for online personal training. Drop me a message to see what I can do for you. Alright, take care.